When the first American PBC controls the top 20% of the market will give it control of 80% of the economy and 80% of the market's wealth and its profits. The first American PBC will ensure a fairer and more equal national asset ownership and distribution of the Commonwealth among average Americans. The fact that the Alpha Network owns 60% of America's wealth, while our $35 trillion is diluted, controlled, siphoned off, and controlled by them, is neutralized and reversed once our PBC is legally established. The only entities that can have more requisite variety than transnational corporations are 1. A transnational government with police power, and 2. A mega-transnational corporation of equal or greater requisite variety. We propose creating a collectively owned PBC that is the evolutionary self-governing successor to our American Constitution. It will be one where have-not citizens are rescued from fiefdom because it provides a sufficient basic income and successfully advances their interests. If most American citizens banded together in a single metacorporation, transferred our commonly owned assets into it, invested enough in the top corporations in America's key economic sectors, and gained a controlling interest, then we could vote our shares to equitably distribute our wealth to each other in monthly dividends. We can apply the 80-20 rule to implement a workable basic guaranteed income, BGI. So, what could be the PBC's core organizing principles? Well, for starters, the first American PBC could have 3 principal design components: the organization and operation of the fund itself, the ownership and disbursement of assets, and the principles informing the operations of the transnational corporations it owns. The fund envisioned is an internet-based organization with online individual account management, fund financial information sharing, communications, and operations. Such operations are consistent with the currently accepted practices of most corporations. A common set of operating principles and practices could govern the key aspects of all the fund's various organizations. Performance goals would focus on optimizing return on investment, free cash flow, and social responsibility. Fortunately, a few of the corporations on our list have expertise in applying organizational development, OD, tools and techniques to facilitate corporate cultural transformation. Over the past 60 years, the OD interventions of participative socio-technical work design, re-engineering, pay for knowledge, and high-performance teams have brought collaboration, profitability, and democratic processes into many parts of corporate America. One of these OD interventions deals with executive compensation. For all fund companies, an a priori mandate will be that no executive's compensation may ever exceed 10 times the compensation of the fund's lowest paid job. In the first American PBC, executive compensation will reflect the new market realities. The Alpha Network monopoly on setting executive pay will finally be replaced with a compensation system that values work and contribution. We contend that no one is more valuable than the President of the United States. For this reason, the President's compensation could be the benchmark for the compensation package of the CEO of the first American PBC. No PBC executive will earn more than the U.S. President. This principle applies to all executive positions. If it is a good business decision to export thousands of $140,000 software engineering jobs from America to India where an engineer earns $40,000, then it is as good a business decision to find senior executives who will work for $500,000 a year instead of for $2 billion plus stock options. There are thousands of exceptionally qualified and talented executives in the labor market eager to earn $500,000 a year. The PBC could find and hire the best among them. Ilya Prigozhin, who won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, 1977, for his groundbreaking discovery of dissipative structures, discovered that there are systems open to their environment that exchange energy and matter with it. These systems can self-organize and evolve and exhibit emergent behaviors that are not present in the individual components of the system. In transformational social change, dissipative structures explain how societies transform. Social systems are dissipative structures, as they are open to their environment and constantly exchange energy and matter with it. As a society, like the United States, becomes more complex, it can reach a point where existing structures and organizations are no longer able to effectively maintain stability. In short, it then dissolves into chaos, or it evolves into a more effective social system better suited to handle the increased complexity. Examples of social systems that have transformed through the emergence of new dissipative structures include the transition from feudalism to capitalism and the rise of the Internet as a new mode of communication and organization. Realizing the United States is a dissipative system, self-organizing that maintains itself through the exchange of energy and matter with its environment, we gain insight into how we respond to increasing complexity in our society. The American PBC is the solution. It embodies the American ideals, beliefs, and social contract to be a self-governing people. It is a new skin for our new wine. It will enable a peaceful transition to a superior social structure best able to adapt to changing conditions. We Americans are now, and always have been, free to organize ourselves any way we wish. In our time, as our founders did in theirs, we can and must create a new community, one bound together by the first American PBC's equal and inclusive capitalism. The ancient Chinese sage reminds us that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. We Americans are often reluctant to embark on deep or fundamental change. We would prefer to work within the systems we have, tweaking them to make incremental improvements. So, our first step towards making the first American PBC a reality requires getting the ball rolling and working out the kinks. That requires finding a credible champion to lead and finance our startup. We estimate that the seed money required in the first year to hire the lawyers, financiers, marketers, and corporate executives required to form the first American PBC as a legal entity, get it up and running, and then market it to the American people to be between $5 to $6 million. How we understand and define a problem determines if and how it is solved. Because the typical American values honesty and fairness, and plays by rules, they are at a distinct disadvantage when thrown into a no-holds-barred back-alley brawl with the alpha network. Because the alphas write the laws and police powers, it is free to engage in a divide-and-conquer strategy to keep the less advantaged American constituents fragmented and fighting among themselves. The unfolding American crisis, tyrannical Trumpism versus moderate liberalism, transcends political party affiliations. Our common interests cry out for a populist solution. Throughout history, populist movements have arisen because of social, political, religious, or economic injustices. The populism of the far right is not popular. Many of our disaffected citizens seek meaningful change. They want to secure their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in our increasingly chaotic, disruptive, complex world. This is what our founders meant when they provided a means for people to seek redress of their grievances. The American PBC will serve the enlightened self-interests of women, working-class white males, the middle class, union members, campaign finance reformers, conservatives, business entrepreneurs, state rights advocates, practicing Christians, minorities, environmentalists, the elderly, the military, Democrats, the Green Party, and moderate Republicans. By unifying and concentrating individual investment assets in the fund, each constituency can advance its vital interests. Most Americans are women, and America's women own most of America's wealth. If American women were of like mind, spoke with one voice, acted in unison, voted together, and invested their collective assets in the first American PBC, they could be the most powerful group in all of recorded human history. A woman's core worldview tends towards the collaboration called for in this platform and away from the alpha network. According to a recent USA Today/CNN/Gallup poll of 40,000 interviewees, women lean Democratic by 11% and the most educated women by 28%. The same poll revealed that women favor a safety net of government social programs and are more socially aware than men. Whether it is because of biology, socialization, or personal experience, American women value equality and social fairness more than their male counterparts. Exploding from 3 million in 1960 to 22 million in 2000, college-educated American women are the most likely to register, vote, and contribute money to political campaigns. The most formidable social constituency, America's women can single-handedly overcome the alpha network and transform the world. In a union management conference several years ago, Charlie Bryan, president of the IAM at Eastern Airlines, announced to a room full of fellow union officials and executives, including CEO Frank Borman, that we could have purchased all the outstanding Eastern Airlines stock with the money we lost in our last give back and own this company right now. The fate of the 30,000 Eastern employees could have been quite different if the IM, APLA, and flight attendants unions had done just that. Their principal problem was the way they thought. Born into an adversarial system and trapped inside the context of elitist capitalism, they really could not envision themselves as the owners of the airline. So, they did not act to make it so. They were the victims of the choice made by the American labor movement at its inception. That choice was to disavow employee ownership and control of the corporate enterprise fight for increased wages and improved working conditions. This choice, made by impoverished people who had neither the means nor the opportunity to become stockholders, was the road not taken that led to the crisis we face today. This worldview, held by most Americans, is the belief that regular citizens do not have an inherent right to insist on common ownership and management of all the assets of the United States. Class capitalism has ruled and enriched the rich, while the potential of egalitarian capitalism has languished because of this American Union paradigm. If the union movement embraced the first American PBC, it would lead a transformational social movement to peacefully reverse our accelerating have/have-not national crisis. Christy Whitman has written, "Party estrangement is, sadly, bipartisan, and it is destroying American politics. We have indeed done a better job than the Democrats of winning the votes of a larger number of the shrinking percentage of voters who go to the polls. We find ourselves in this situation in part because we too often follow the advice of political consultants to appeal not to a majority of the electorate but only to the most motivated voters, those with the most zealous, ideological beliefs. Both parties now concentrate largely on turning out greater numbers of their most fervent supporters. As a result, candidates tailor their appeals to those who already agree with them. The inevitable outcome is rhetoric that precludes a sensible discussion of issues. Those with the shrillest voices are increasingly dominating our political discourse. Campaign finance reformers have struggled valiantly against the Alpha Network. Unfortunately, the post-McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform world remains awash in corporate special interest money. The first American PBC would dampen those shrill, yet disproportionately influential voices. Creating a new, moderate, inclusive megacorporation designed to represent the interests of most Americans, will be attractive to Republicans, Democrats, and independents interested in exercising moderation and preserving we the people. The Alpha Network has a political backbone, and it is the millions of followers whose vote advances the network's agenda. These followers, once the stalwarts of the New Deal Democratic Party, have been maneuvered into cutting off their noses despite their faces. A prime example is voting for Alpha Network candidates who harm them economically but represent them culturally. It's an old, well-entrenched game. During the Reconstruction era in the South, poor white sharecroppers were pitted against black sharecroppers by wealthy landowners. This strategy kept the poor whites fearful of the poor blacks and focused both sets of sharecroppers on fighting each other while the plantation owners profited from low wages and internal lower-class strife. That same strategy is operating today, pitting a diminishing number of blue-collar American workers against minorities, immigrants, and foreign factory workers. The first American PBC reverses this conflict and hostility by creating a vehicle for advancing their common interests and their collective financial well-being. A broad constituency could join in the center. Rather than continuing to be trapped in a political system controlled by the Alpha Network and representing the interests of the extreme left and right, the first American PBC will move the national dialogue back to a focus on common interests and a truly representative political system. Once it assesses the first American PBC as a threat, the Alpha Network will use all its resources to destroy it. Since 9/11, the Alpha Network has vigorously expanded its secret activities and police powers to tighten its grip on the levers of government. It is only prudent to expect that those powers would be employed against any threat that could be characterized as anti-American. In the political realm, this power has been employed to marginalize, stifle, and silence other forms of dissent. Having a variety of media authorities repeat the same bits of half-truths over and over again to convince the public to believe them is what the Alpha Network calls staying on message. Historians and political scientists call that propaganda. A sociological pattern analysis of major talk show appearances, the sequencing and nuances of questioning, and outright propaganda make it clear that, from Chris Matthews to Bill O'Reilly, most media influence peddlers vote for and support their alpha network peers and principals. Even Democratic Washington insiders, like Senators Lieberman and Kerry, who may or may not be alpha network members, are certainly helping the network's causes.